Hello, my name is Marissa and welcome to elementarySchoolCounseling.org's video podcast. This is our 5th video podcast called How to Make Your Own Games. I wanted to talk more about games because I use them in all different settings. I use them individually, in small groups, in classrooms, but I think in particular, games work really well in small group settings because it's the perfect environment. You have multiple students so they can work with each other, work on social skills, but you're in a very controlled environment. It's a small number so you can really pay attention to their interactions and help facilitate them. And also, you usually have a table, you're in a circle, you kind of have the perfect location and setup for a game. And of course, I talked about Who Knew before, but I wanted to talk about a game that you can make on your own because sometimes they can get very expensive, especially for counseling-specific games. They're very, very expensive. And so I wanted to show you some that I've made on my own. And I think they've cost less than $5 probably. I mean, they took a lot of time, but I've posted all of the materials for this. So really it's just a matter of you printing them off and laminating and creating your own boards if you want to use exactly the same games that I have. So it'll be a little bit easier for you guys. I start by buying a simple box, like a box you might put clothes in, or a box that you would wrap a gift in. They're pretty cheap, they come in packs, and they're kind of flimsy, but if you're the only one that's really handling it and opening the box, it's not too bad. So that's about what it looks like. And I'll show you one of my games called The Feelings Highway and show you first what's actually in it and what materials I used. So I bought a thick foam board and I cut it into quarters. So I had 4 different game boards that are about this size. So pretty small. And then I covered it with cardstock. If you wanted to make a bigger game, you could probably cut the foam board in half and then have double this size. I also have 1 die. I have laminated cards for the game itself. And I have sheets of my checklist. This I used to help record answers that students give for the game, and it's really great documentation because then all I do is I copy it and put it in their folder that I use to document. And actually I should go into eventually, once I have some time over summer break, go into how I document because I have a special system for documenting individual counseling versus small group. I'm really big on documentation. I like to be able to look back and see what I talked about a student with a year ago, or if someone asked me a question, I can look back and remember some of the conversations that we've had because I'm sure you have, hundreds of students that come up to you all the time that talk to you about different things, and it's easy to forget a detail here or there. So I like to be very good about my documentation. So this is a really easy way to still participate in the game, but to have, your answers recorded right there. I also have a laminated copy of my directions too, in case I forget something. And I have game pieces, and in this particular game, they are cars. The problem with these is they're a little big for my board, and they have wheels that roll. So if you can find cars that have wheels but that they are not able to roll, that you can actually just move up and down, that might be better, but the kids like that they roll around, so I mean it's not really that big of a deal. Okay, so how to play The Feelings Highway. This is a game that I use pretty much with kindergarten, 1st and 2nd graders. You could use it with older students, but I find other games can be a little bit more effective with them. But this game is about sharing your feelings, and I describe feelings in 4 basic feelings, like mad, sad, happy, and scared or surprised. I think it's the easiest way to talk about it. And basically what the students are asked to do is go from the start and get all the way around to the finish. Now if they land on this square, they get to take the shortcut and go there. But if they land past it, they have to go all the way around. Red squares, they go to the pit, so they have to wait there. They lose their turn and have to go back here. And the yellow squares are for a specific question that they get asked. And so that's where my feelings checklist comes in. So if a student lands on a yellow square, I see what space has been opened or what hasn't been asked yet. So the first question is, talk about a time when you felt mad, sad, happy, or scared. So then I'll pick one. So this first student, I would say, okay, I'm going to ask them mad. And on the back, I'm going to record what their answer is. So talk about a time when you felt mad, and then they'll tell me, and we'll, as a group, talk about it, give some feedback, and then the next person goes. And we just keep, I've never had a problem really going beyond the questions that I have allowed myself. I have 12 options. If you do, it's not that big of a deal. You can give students an extra one of a different feeling that they didn't already get. But I like this because this controls what they get asked. So if I know a student has already been asked a question about being mad, I'll pick something a little bit different to see how they handle that, or so they can talk about different feelings rather than the same ones. If you're working with just cards, you can't always control what questions students are asked. Now, the white squares on here are called the free tank of gas cards. So this is their free space where they don't have to answer a question, but they can pick someone to answer a question. So these are questions like, or topics like, talk about a time when you were scared, or what do you do when you are sad. Some of these are repeats for the feelings checklist. Actually, a lot of them are. If you want to, you can come up with different questions. I don't really think it's that big of a deal, just because the chances are we'll not have the same question for their feelings checklist, but you could usually work something out. But these are for when students land on it, they get to pick somebody else. And if they get this multiple times, I ask them to pick someone that they haven't already chosen, or somebody who hasn't been chosen by anybody, so that it can really be fair. And I also, whenever I'm playing a board game with students, I make sure that they know it's not a competition. It's not about who finishes first. I do not praise them for finishing first. I praise them for participating and for answering the questions, even when it's kind of a hard question to answer. I mean, talking about feelings is really hard, and that's why I like to do it in a game form, because it's a way to take it away from what they normally think of. Take it outside of themselves and do it in a fun way. And that's why I love games and play therapy techniques for children, because they respond so much better than if you just sat down with them and said, tell me about how you're feeling, or tell me about blah, 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 blah. Because they just sit there and stare at you, and they, some students are more verbal than others, but I get a lot more when I play a game. Okay, so there's that game, and I will provide the link for that, all the documents and the information about the game on my website, so you can look at it, get closer pictures, download all the materials for the cards, everything, even the directions. You will, however, have to actually create the board yourself, and you can adjust it however you want to, but at least it gives you a little bit of something to work with. Okay. The next game is Jungle Fun, and this is a getting to know you game. I'll use this game as my introduction for my younger students. If you saw my Who Knew video podcast, I use that game for my older students, my intermediate students, and so for my younger or primary students, I use this game as a get to know you game. So here's what the cover looks like. Again, it's pretty simple. Oops. And it kind of looks probably very busy from here, from what you're seeing. But they just go around, hop from island to island, till they get to the sandcastle finish line. And this one has a few more types of spaces, and they're just basic kind of questions. And so this board has the directions, 2 different kinds of cards, and then game pieces. And I've chosen to just use Legos because it's simple and they fit really well with the squares, better than cars, for example, fit on my Feelings Highway game. So what they do is go around. If they land on a square with a little red square inside of it, they have to answer an All About Me card. And so these are questions like, what is my favorite subject in school? Or if I had a superpower, what would it be? What's my favorite food? Those kinds of questions, and they answer it about themselves. And if they land on an orangish, yellowish square, they get to pick someone to ask a question, but they don't have to come up with a question on their own. they get to have a question from this card, and I can read the question for them and help them out, or might even read it ahead of time and say, who would you like to know this about? If they have a square that has an outline around it, that means that they have to pick someone in the group and say something they like about them or something that they have enjoyed about them. I know this is a get to know you game, but most students have at least been in the same classroom and they can point something out that they saw that person do. And again, I like to rotate. So let's say the first person lands on this square and they pick someone to say something nice about, and then the next person happens to land on another square just like it. They can't pick that same person. They have to pick somebody else. And that way it's a little bit more fair so that the same people aren't getting picked all the time. And the same goes for when you're asking a question. I like to vary it. The only other square they have are ones with stickers on them of different beachy or animal type things. And that is where you get to pick someone to ask a question, but you can ask them whatever question you want within reason, obviously something appropriate. But they, come up with really interesting questions, and it's really fun to hear them, what they ask each other. And then, of course, they, try to get to the finish line. Both of these games, it's really hard in a 30-minute chunk of time when you're, for me, when I get in with the group, they sit down, we review the rules, which I use the Happy and Sad Cup, and I'll provide that link as well. And then once we explain that, that's usually 5 minutes in, and then I explain the purpose of the game, and then we get started. And, we need another 5 minutes at the end of the lesson around that to count our points and to decide if we've earned our reward for the day for good behavior. And I know that seems like a lot of time. I mean, that could be 10 minutes of time working on rules and things like that, but that is working on social skills. It's just a different way, and we reflect on how our behavior was, and that's a big part of it. So yes, we have 20 minutes for a game and 10 minutes for rules and behavior and to discuss that, but it all kind of connects together, and the kids really love it, they get it, and even older kids come back into my room and ask me about the Happy and Sad Cup, and they kind of want to still do it, which is so funny because I thought that they would think that it's too childish, but for some reason they love earning points and doing good things and getting praise for it. So who would have thought? All right, so these are just a couple of my games. I thought it might be helpful for me to explain them to you rather than trying to read about it on the webpage itself. I know sometimes it can seem kind of confusing what it actually is and how it works. It's easier sometimes, at least for me, I like someone to explain it to me rather than interpreting it myself. If you have questions about these games that I featured today on the video podcast, or if you have your own games and activities that you want to share on elementarySchoolCounseling.org, just fill out the contact form on my contact page. And I will, if it's your own idea, I will give you thanks and credit on the site. I have used these games for 3 years, so if you have any issues when you try to use them or questions, please don't hesitate to contact me because I can help you, hopefully, probably, because I've dealt with all different age groups using these, trying them out. So I've probably had a similar issue, and so I might be able to tell you or give you some ideas of how I've handled it. I really like them, and they've been really helpful for my small groups. Thank you for watching this video podcast from elementarySchoolCounseling.org. If you have any questions or comments, again, just fill out my contact form on my contact page, and you can also connect with me on Twitter and Facebook, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel and look at all the playlists that I've developed for different topics for school counseling. I love all the feedback that I'm getting from these podcasts, but also from the site in general. I'm going to continue to add more to the site, especially over summer break. I have a lot of really big plans, so if there's anything that's not on the site that you really want to see, please let me know, or if there's something you want me to feature on a video podcast, I'd be more than happy to do that. So just let me know, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.